Welcome to Global Signs. I'm Bruce Han. From Hong Kong, we'll be speaking with Joseph Chang. After a successful career of 2 decades in the equities industry working for global investment banks, Joseph co-founded a fintech startup called LoRa Technologies. LoRa aims to provide retail stock investors advice and investment tools that otherwise are only available to the wealthy. Joseph and his team leveraged the latest in AI technology to replicate the best investment practices in the industry. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bruce. It's great to be here.
Joseph, can you tell our viewers what motivated you and your partners to establish LoRa Technologies and what LoRa is all about?
Yeah, sure. Well, as you mentioned, my partners and I spent 2 decades or more at different banks working in the stock markets. And we realized actually we are not any smarter than anybody else when it comes to stock investments. It's just that in banks, we have developed the right processes to analyze stocks, to pick stocks. The whole investment process, the risk management process has been proven time and time again to work properly in banks. These things are all very human capital intensive and costly. So these services usually are reserved for institutions and the wealthy. For the regular stock traders out there, they're basically left to their own devices. They don't have access to these tools. So this inspired us to start LoRa Technologies. Using the latest in AI technologies, you can replicate a lot of these tools and services for the regular investor.
Now, can you explain to our viewers about your main product, Ask LoRa?
Sure. So Ask LoRa is a mobile app. We are a robo-advisor for stock investments. So our AI engines essentially help regular stock investors choose stocks. We analyze stocks to help them choose stocks. We also have AI bots to help them trade the stock from end to end.
When you were the COO at Citi, what did you focus on when looking for exceptional stock investments? Can you provide tips for retail investors who are struggling to find attractive stocks?
Sure. Well, I was working in large banks, and so our focus naturally were institutional investors and the high net worth. So we tended to focus on only the big names, the big caps. There were a couple of major trends going on in Asia back then. One was obviously the growth in wealth, the rise of the middle class. And so in each market, you followed leaders in areas like banks, industrials, utilities, consumer goods. The other trend that was very prevalent was obviously in Asia, we were not only leaders in manufacturing, but we became leaders in tech. So things like, autos in Japan and Korea, semiconductors in Korea and Taiwan, software in India was a big theme, and then obviously internet in China. And so for us, it was following big trends. And I would suggest that regular investors do the same. There are plenty of themes that are happening today across the world. In tech, obviously, you've got things like AI, you've got 5G, you've got electric vehicles, you've got blockchain. ESG investing has become quite the theme as well. And things that are related to COVID, whether it's pharmaceuticals or post-COVID pent-up demand type of themes. So I would encourage people to look at these themes, focus on the leaders, and do your homework.
Despite market fears, the U.S. stock market is trading at a near all-time high. Do you think now is the time to actively buy stocks, or do you think it's better to take profits and be long cash?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bruce. I think we are at a point where markets are very high, as you say. The liquidity that central banks have pumped into the system has helped all stocks, all company prices to go up, the good along with the not so good. And now we're entering into the stage of higher inflation, whether it's transitory or not, we'll find out. And tapering has already started, and perhaps we might even see rate rises next year. So I think for the average retail investor, your margin of error is a lot smaller than ever before. And so you really have to do your homework. And When I say that, I mean you have to figure out your financial condition and how much you should invest in the markets so you don't overinvest. Make sure you pick the themes that fit your investment profile. Find the leaders, do your homework, and plan. Always have a game plan before you trade. Don't just jump into the market. So yeah, I think even though the markets are high, you can still actively invest. Just do your homework.
Now, finally, Joseph, what are the most promising sectors and stocks for 2022?
Yes, at Laura, we like the airlines and the cruise lines in general in the U.S. This is obviously part of that post-COVID pent-up demand kind of theme. The leaders in this space that our AI engines have scored well on are American Airlines and Royal Caribbean Cruises. American Airlines, their passenger bookings have already jumped fourth quarter, and we think they can return to profitability as oil prices stabilize. So the value metrics are looking pretty good. Royal Caribbean Cruises, on the other hand, we expect bookings to increase next year. And they are showing good quality metrics, things like fixed asset turnover and cash ratios. So these are the two stocks that we like in the short to medium term.
Joseph Chang, CEO and co-founder of Laura Technologies, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. For stock picks, Joseph likes airline and cruise lines for the near and medium term. His picks are American Airlines and Royal Caribbean Cruises. Thank you so much for being with us today, and until next week, please be vigilant, safe, and healthy.